I'm Phil. I'm Nilden.
I'm Raz.
I'm gonna bust his ass.
I'm Brandon.
Slide jobs by the dozen out here.
Hello, this is Thomas.
Here. Pisser.
I'm John.
Down the back straightaway for the final time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
This is the Dirty Slider Podcast. Don't let a slider get your ass kicked. All right. Welcome into another episode of Dirty Sliders. Sorry we missed y'all last week. It was mostly my fault. I was sick. But we are going to try to pick up the slack this week. Neilden has picked up a couple guests here that we're really excited about hearing from because we had, as we said in previous episodes, sprint cars have got to change. We got to get these cars safer. So with that, I'm going to throw it to you, Neilden.
What's up, everybody? So, if you remember a few episodes back, we were talking about our boy Shane Sexton and his crash where he hurt his back, along with Chase, his crash, his back, and how we need to do something with sprint cars, the chassis, the teams, the organization. Something has to change to stop hurting these guys so bad. So, surfing the old interwebs, I found Mr. Lance Smith and his project that he came out with on a different way to mount the seats to the chassis to try to take some of that absorption when they do pancake the pan, when they wreck hard. And we got Mr. Dale Howard, one of his drivers, that's running his product. So first off, Lance, how did you get the idea to make something for the seat? Was it the same kind of thing as us? Was we're like, our guys are getting hurt, we got to figure something out, or where did it start
from? I'll try to do this as fast as possible. My wife has been a realtor for 30 plus years. She sold a house to a super duper couple that we have stayed in touch with and watched their boys grow up. It's Andy and Brad McElhann are the two boys. The parents, we've been friends with them forever. Both of the boys have worked for me at my construction business over the years as they were growing up. And I was looking for some more help in the machine shop. Posted an ad, on Facebook looking for some more help. Brad McElhann answered me and said, hey, I've already got 2 jobs. I'll come to work and help you out. You're doing some cool stuff, and you don't even have to pay me. And I was like, Brad, I can't do that. Come on, I'd love to have you. So Brad comes to work, and Brad's whole family are sprint car drivers. They started out in go-karts and then sprint cars, and they've raced against Dale. Both the boys have for years. And Brad had been there 3 or 4 months, and he just came in my office one day and sat down and said, have you ever thought about doing anything different? I said, Brad, I think about stuff all the time. What? And he said, I wish you would look at the way that they mount the seats in a sprint car. I've got 2 friends of mine that are paralyzed from sprint car wrecks, and one of those friends is Dale's little brother, which I did not know that at the time. And so I said, okay. So I've been going to sprint car races off and on, just watching because they're just so freaking cool, listening to them and watch them. And so I started looking at the way they put the seats in it, and then kind of got it figured out, how I was going to do it. And so Brad said, hey, you need to reach out to Dale Howard because he's got a bunch of cars. He got sprint cars and late models and all this, and you need to reach out to Dale because he's going to have cars and chassis and seats and the whole deal. And I'd only met Dale about a year before, but my wife and him knew each other when they were little, and it's just a funny deal the way it all came together. But that's how it came together, from Brad McElhann walking in my office and say, will you look at the way they put seats in a race car?
Awesome. So you think it works great in the sprint car and late models, or basically any tube chassis?
Yeah, it will if they use 1-inch bars. The sprint car, of course, is what we worked on first. It may evolve into, other things and grow, hopefully, if it's successful. But the only thing we really worked on is sprint cars.
So what is the product? Is it a polyurethane? Is it a rubber? Is it styrofoam? What is it?
It's a polyurethane. So I don't know if you've seen my website. I'm, not from the dirt track world. I'm from the dirt bike world. and I invented a set of foot pegs I started working on them back in 13, got the patents done back in 15, and I figured out a way to put foot pegs on a dirt bike and put polyurethane in them so that the foot platform is not connected to the motorcycle and it moves in all axes, and it just makes it a lot more comfortable. And then after I did that, I thought, as soon as the world, I hadn't released the foot peg yet, and I thought, well, as soon as the world sees the foot peg, and when I say world, I mean another entrepreneur, a company, a tinker, somebody was going to see it. And they were going to try to figure out a way to take a round set of handlebars and not mount them metal to metal and put suspension in the handlebars. So that's what I worked on next. And that product is really successful in the dirt bike world. So we've got, about 11 years, I guess I've been working with polyurethane. And so it was natural. It absorbs vibration. All kinds of vibration, and it does real good bouncing back, and it's got a long life. You can't hardly burn it. It's not susceptible to chemicals like gas. The only thing bad about urethane is it's not UV stable, so the UV light affects it.
Well, good thing most of the cars have some kind of bodywork, and they like to stay in shops.
Yeah,
and we race at night.
Yeah, that's cool. In the dirt bike world, we recommend you change the polymers once a year just to keep them fresh, So I suspect the sprint car thing, just based on my experience, you can certainly leave them in there longer than that. I have guys that brag to me, that they hadn't touched their Mako 360 is the handlebar mount. I hadn't touched my Mako in 4 years, and it's been on 7 different bikes. I've never put polymers in it, and that's great. It lasts that long, but you really shouldn't do that,
And what's your website, real quick, so we can get that out there for people to look around on it?
It's xcgear.com.
There we go. Do you have the sprint car mounts on there also, or just the dirt bike stuff right now?
We've got just a landing page for the monkey bars. It basically just it says, hey, they'll be in production soon. It's got some pictures of Dale Howard and his car on the landing page, and there's a form you can fill out to just get email updates. A lot of people just watch our social media.
Perfect. So what are all your socials you have?
I frequently post on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Those are the big 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
Dale,
XC
you're running these
Gear?
currently?
Sir?
Yeah, X-Ray Charlie.
Yes, sir. XC Gear. Yeah, just like the hat right there. We post on that, or I do a lot. I posted, I think, 2 videos today. I've got some more videos to post on the drop test. I posted 1 video on the drop test right before we went to Cape. Right before we went to the PRI show.
So
How'd you like PRI?
It was Dale told me, he said, you don't know how big this thing is till you see it, and you can do 3 days and not see everything, and he wasn't lying.
That's
you
one of
can
my
do 3
favorite
days.
shows when I was in Florida.
So tell me about the drop test. What are we doing there?
So we went to Cape, testing up outside of Indianapolis, and did some drop testing to see what kind of G forces that the system would mitigate. Hopefully the chassis would see a lot more G forces than the occupant. So we modeled, I guess y'all didn't see the video, but we took a sprint car frame and we cut the whole front end off of it and the whole back end off of it and just left the cockpit. And then we had a seat in it. And then we shipped that to Cape about a month before the test so they could get their parameters of the test right. And then we started, dropping. We did 2 drops last Thursday and 2 drops on Friday. Just to see how well it worked.
We watched the video, but we got 3 or 4 listeners on here, so we want to make sure they know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the first drop, the guys at Cape are awesome, and they're very smart. But you have to, in order to come up with the formulas, you have to make a lot of assumptions in order to get the drop test real world like you want it. And they tried to hit, didn't they try to hit 300G on the first drop? Was it 300?
Right,
Yeah, they
ended up at 433.
Dude, you'll
Yeah,
feel
so
that one the
that's-
next day.
Yeah, so that's really not survivable, regardless of what it is. But so they dropped at 433. The first drop was really we were looking for a 2-to-1 safety factor, so we tried to figure out, what's the just based it on a 1,600-pound car, and figure the speeds. What is the highest G-force that a sprint car possibly could see. And then we figured that, and then we wanted to exceed that by double, to have twice the safety factor. The guys at Cape tried to hit that, but they more than quadrupled it. And which that was really all the good information we got out of the first drop was our stuff didn't bend or break or there's no we just took it right off the car. And had to replace a seat bar in the car. It broke the seat bar, and had to, they welded the seat bar back up and then put everything back together for the next drop. We actually used all the parts for all 4 drops. So that was really the only information we got, I think, that's usable out of the first drop is you're not going to tear our stuff up.
Now, here we go. I
And-
got a video. We'll share it real quick for everybody to watch. I mean, that seat moved, what, a good 1.25 inches, maybe?
About 2
You got the
inches.
tabs?
Yeah, it's about 2 inches, I believe.
Which that's definitely substantial in energy absorption for sure.
Yes, sir.
So Dale, you've
On
been
the seat bar.
running this system.
Yeah, so we've been running it all year.
Have you crash tested it?
I have. I was the original crash dummy.
You're looking good. Don't worry.
So, how long have you been racing, Dale?
Since 93. I've raced sprint cars since 93.
And so you've been in a lot of unfortunate events.
Oh, yeah.
So the feeling from just the general style seat mounting to this setup, what do you feel is the difference when it comes to taking those impacts?
So the seat system's strong enough that I can't feel the seat move while I'm racing, but it's going to protect you in a crash. I mean, you saw from that video right there, you see how much it moves in a crash. But when we're racing, it doesn't move around at all. So, I mean, that's a perfect scenario. That's what we were looking for.
So you don't feel any flex or anything while you're driving then?
No, I don't feel anything.
Is the vibration that you're feeling through the chassis from, say, the motor the same? Or is that dampened a little bit?
It does dampen it. Yeah, it does dampen the vibration, which is a good thing. I mean, there's no way I'd get in a car without it again.
Well, it's like we were saying before we started recording. Something's got to change in sprint cars, and I don't know what the answer is. We've talked about a lot of stuff about mandating that they lengthen the wheelbases by 4 or 5 inches to give the driver a little bit more room. I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to change because we're hurting people a lot.
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of friends and my little brother. He's paralyzed from a sprint car accident. My other little brother, he broke his back and his neck, and I broke my back. So, and it's kind of usually from the same impacts. When you hit down real hard and the frame hits the ground, you get that jar up your spine, and you generally get at least 3 vertebrae.
Yeah, that's one of the things we were talking about off camera was 4, 5, and 6 seems to be the ones that everybody gets. Everybody looks at a sprint car crash and they look so violent as they're tumbling and flipping, and I had to explain to my wife, as long as it's flipping, everything's good.
That's right.
It's that sudden stop.
Yep.
Yeah, the ones that look real bad, they don't usually hurt. It's the ones that don't look bad that we usually get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen the Brian Clausen one. That didn't look bad at all, and obviously it was. The same with Kevin Swindell. I didn't think that one looked too terrible at all.
Yeah, my little brothers didn't look bad at all either.
Yeah.
I was the first one to his car. I expected to go over there and just help him get out. It didn't even hurt the car at all. And then I go up there and he says, "Hey, I can't feel anything."
Oh man.
So that was in '07. So he still goes to the racetrack every chance he can with me. Still loves the race cars and comes down to the shop, gives us all a hand. He's more involved in the racing than I am.
That's awesome to hear.
Oh yeah, so he still loves it, and he'd get back in one tomorrow if he could.
So, Lance, what's the cost of this system? Somebody wants to put it in a sprint car.
It's going to be around $1,500.
So right on par with I think they call it the CAM system, as price wise.
Right. Yeah. This one will be a complete bolt-in that you could do. I would say any capable person could do it in an hour or less. So it's pretty simple as long as the car is, ready. You need an inch of clearance between the seat bar or the bar on the back of the seat on the pillar. You need an inch of clearance to get it in there, but it's all bolt-on, and you can move it from car to car.
So most drivers have a 1 inch spacer or more at the back on most of their cars, except for big mooses like me.
Yep. Yeah, Dale's car, we didn't do anything. Dale's he runs a Mach 1 chassis. Mark Smith out of Pennsylvania. He's the other guy that's been running the system. Is Mark Smith up in PA at Mach 1. So he puts a lower seat bar. Dale actually runs what Mark calls a cattywampus seat bar. So it's a low seat bar, and then it's tilted to the left 1 inch. Is that right, Dale?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Dale's car is we didn't do anything. He was running a 1 inch spacer, and we just bolted it in the car.
Yeah. And I run the Ultra Shield seat. So we sent the system to Mark since he runs a Butler seat, and we didn't tell him how to put it in, didn't send any instructions or anything. We just said, put it in, and he said it took him about an hour to install it. It was very simple. And so we knew.
We didn't send it with any bolts. Remember,
That's right.
I called him and said,
right.
Mark, I'm gonna send all the studs and the pinch clamps, but I'm not sending any of the hardware other than that. I just wanted to see, was it common hardware in a race shop? Because you don't want to have some bolts that a guy can't readily either get in his shop or run to somewhere relatively close and get the bolts they need. So that was part of the reason, the majority of the reason. Hey, can you do it without instructions? How easy is it to do? And do you have the bolts, or can you get the bolts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it must be pretty simple to put in if you could just send it to somebody blind and they were able to figure it out.
Oh, yeah, and he's from Pennsylvania.
Tell us how you really
Most race car drivers are a little bit lazy.
Yeah, I know. I love those guys from PA. There is a ton of dirt bike riders in PA, and so we sell a lot of stuff up in PA. The PA is a bunch of good people.
Where are you based
A lot
out
of good
Lance?
people. I'm in Mississippi. So if you're familiar with Memphis, our business is 1 mile due south of the Memphis airport. So we're on Airways Boulevard, and obviously the airport is on Airways Boulevard. So we're about 7 miles from the Memphis airport, maybe. But we're in Mississippi.
And Dale, you're based out of Mississippi too?
Same place. I'm about probably 10 minutes down the road from Lance.
Okay.
Yep.
And you guys obviously love whooping up on the posse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So another thing we hadn't talked about is when I was talking to Dale, or Dale was telling me when his brother got hurt, is how long it took the emergency personnel to get his brother out of the car. Okay. And so we worked on that too, and what you'll see is something that hasn't been done before. But we actually designed a captive washer that is in the car that you sit on. All the bolts that go down through the face of the seat are captive, so you do not need a wrench on the front of the seat, inside the seat. You only need a wrench under the bottom or the back of the seat. So what that was done for was to speed up the process, so now you can get the driver out of the car while he's still in the seat. You can take the whole seat and everything out. Just get him out of the belts, and he comes out.
Yeah, obviously if you got a hurt
C-spine, huh, Phil?
Sir?
That takes care of maintaining C-spine and not jiggling what's already been juggled.
That's exactly
Yes,
right.
sir.
Yeah, and obviously if you have a hurt driver in a seat, you won't be able to get to any hardware that he's sitting on or leaning on.
That's right.
That's right. So this one will allow you to do it. It's some pretty cool. It's simple. I'm not a rocket scientist. It's just a little bit of thinking and some trying to be thoughtful about it. And that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah, I was at Paris the night that Marcus Niemela got hurt, and it took them a long time to get him out of that car. They ended up cutting the cage and the seat away from him.
Yeah. Dale told me that. He said either, it's jaws of life, or a saw or something that's very disruptive. It takes a lot of time. And I was like, man, we got to do this better. So realistically, if you have a 9/16 ratchet, it'll be high, or battery operated driver. It's how fast can you loosen 8 9/16 bolts.
Yeah, if
that's all it is.
If you're not familiar with the Marcus Niemela crash, he, in qualifying at Paris, at full boogie going into turn 1, he broke a right rear axle tube. Yeah, and he's still not right. It's been 10 years. He didn't get any spinal injuries. He got head injuries.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, he got spun hard.
Yeah, so if you, I don't know so much about the helmets that are used in car racing, but the helmet industry changed in the dirt bike side probably about 10 years ago. A company called 6D came out. So the old way to do a helmet was just the outer shell, and then your styrofoam liner, and then your cloth liner, and that was your helmet. And that's what everybody did. Then a company called 6D came along and said, you know what, really you ought to have the liners separate, and they shouldn't be attached to the outer shell. And so the 6D helmet has an outer shell, then 2 liners that are not attached to each other than some like rubber dampeners that move in all axes, and then the cloth liner so your head could move inside the helmet. It doesn't necessarily follow the travel of the helmet all the time. And be honest with you, when they came out with a helmet, and that's when good helmets, like a really nice helmet, was probably $500. And the 6D came out, and it was $750 to $800, and I thought they'll never sell a single one of them. Mm-hmm. And, man, was I wrong. They were gangbusters, and then every helmet company changed. They've all got their own take of it now. So it's really kind of the same thing we're doing with the seat, is just floating the seat in that chassis. So hopefully that driver doesn't feel everything that chassis does.
Well, sadly, the motorsports helmets haven't changed. There's still the foam liner inside of a hard shell, and there's not much innovation going on there. Some of the Stilo helmets are a little different, but the thing that irritates me is you'll find a guy that's been racing for 15 years and he's still got the same helmet. It's like they do wear out.
Yes, sir. You see those helmets behind me?
Yeah.
All those up there? Those are all dirt bike helmets I change helmet. I keep 2 helmets active all the time, and I change helmets at least every 2 years. So I'm going to rotate those helmets and keep them fresh. But they've actually got Fly. They make some really nice dirt bike helmets, but they have an indicator now. The helmet that just came out this year has an indicator on the back of the helmet. I don't know how they're doing it with an accelerometer or what. I hadn't read into it. I don't have that one. I have last year's that tells you when the helmet needs to be replaced. If you've taken a lick hard enough, it tells you need to replace your helmet.
That's interesting. I hadn't seen that.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it all started with those.
Autosports need to look at it.
Yeah, but actually, Darren Pittman at Ultra Shield, he makes the tearaways for 6D helmets. So I know y'all are familiar. Here's a pair right here. I run a roll-off system, so you just pull the string, it gives you another field of vision. But they make I'm sure y'all use them, those tearaways. You just rip it off your goggle. Well, 6D actually 6D doesn't make them. I found out Darren does. Darren makes them for 6D helmets.
But he knows a thing or two about sprint cars too.
Yeah, he does.
Oh yeah.
Me and Dale drove out there back in the summer to meet him.
So now is your seat mount system in production now? Like people could go on your website and buy it, or are you still gearing up for that?
It's probably 30 days away. So when you say they're in production, they are literally in production as we speak right now. So I've got an app on my phone. I don't know if you can see it, but they're running as we speak. I don't know if you can read any of that. See that right there?
Oh yeah, we can see the updates on that.
Yeah.
And that's your own equipment making that stuff.
Yes, sir. We went at it the hard way, or stupid, but I thought robots were the thing of the future, and so we went robotic right off the start. It was like stupid and hard, and we're ignorant, and it was very, very hard to implement that. But now that I've done it, there's no replacing it. So
Well,
you can see some of the videos.
House.
It's still working. This is real simple. I'll tell everybody this. So if you have a full-time job, you consider full-time employment 40 hours a week. That's what everybody does. Full-time employment is 40 hours a week. But there's actually 168 hours in every week. There's 168 hours. So you're really working less than 25%, but everybody considers that full-time. So you can't run 2 shifts, and you're only hitting 80 hours a week if you ran 2 shifts of people. And then your most unproductive time is when you come into work and right before you leave. That's your most I don't care who you are. That's going to be your most unproductive time at work. The robot doesn't care. So we still need all the people that we normally would have, but it just takes the mundane task of loading that machine and keeping it running all the time. So our robot typically runs about 62% of the available time. So we're running about 2.5 times of a full-time job, a full-time person every week.
So
that's the only way we can keep up.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. 40 hours is full time. Hold my beer. Watch this.
Yeah, it's I go to other people's shop and I see their machines and stuff, and then and I just think, then they cut the lights off and they go home, and I'm like, man, that I don't know. Everybody's meal's different, but I don't care if it's a $200,000 meal or a $500,000 meal. I kind of consider, I know this isn't the right way to look at it, but I consider everything that is completed parts in that machine when we show up to work the next morning is free. They're not free, but it's getting it when everybody's not,
Yeah.
So Dale and I came home from the PRI show on Sunday. Dale and my wife dropped me off at the shop, and I flipped the robot, and then my wife dropped Dale off and then turned around and came pick me up, and the robot ran all Sunday night. Otherwise, it wouldn't have run because we were gone. But yeah, the robot is a way.
Wait a minute, Lance. Lance, flipping is my job. I'm the crash dummy. Remember, that's my job.
Yeah.
Hey, Dale.
He'll flip it too.
I got a question for you,
Go ahead,
Dale.
Phil.
From a driver's point of view, after from having your seat hard mounted to the chassis and then having the mount put in it. The next day, how do you feel the next day compared to the two?
So, like I said, it takes away the vibration. I think in a crash is where I would see the biggest difference. And I would have to, so what I'd have to do is I'd have to run the car one night with the system in and then run the car another night with it out to give you an accurate comparison. The problem is I don't plan on running the car with the system out. So I'm not going to be able to give you that comparison. Because I know if I crash, I need that in there. But my point is, when you're racing, you really can't tell that it's in there, and which is actually a good thing because we want to feel the car.
Well, like you said, you were the
How
crash
was the
test
product
dummy.
received at PRA?
I'm the original crash test dummy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that means you've tested it. You've crashed with it in, and obviously you've been racing a long time in sprint cars, and it's not if, it's when it happens. So you've crashed with it not in before you had the system in your car. Did you notice a difference?
Oh yeah.
Like the day after or the Monday after the wreck? Like I know when I've had a wreck, it's the day of. Energy, you got your adrenaline flowing. I'm not really hurt. I'm good to go, unless of course you're really hurt. And then Monday, you're like, "Holy shit! Who drove that Matt truck through me?" Do you
That's
feel?
exactly right.
Are you less sore on Monday after a wreck with the system in, or about the same?
Well, I can tell you this: the 2 times that I crashed hard and flipped with that system in, they were both in the same night. If that tells you anything. So after the first crash, we put the car back together, and I crashed it again that night. And then we put the car back together, and then I raced the next night. I didn't crash the next night.
You're like
Sounds like a little bit of an overachiever.
You're like every other dirt track racer out there. You're stupid.
Yeah, I know. We were trying to battle back from a blown engine in hot laps, and then the driver was trying to be a little over aggressive, and
So-
it tore the car up twice.
Blown engine and two flips. That's a hell of a weekend.
It was it was a great weekend.
So
How
the
was
funny thing, the right before his crash, I was laying in bed and thinking about his pinch clamps, and supposedly they were fail safe, and blah blah blah. We'd already been through every scenario, and I was saying, well, what if, what if? So the very next morning, I get up. We run some. No, I didn't run the new pinch clamps. I just leave, go straight to the laboratory, and I told the lab, test the pinch clamps like this for me. And sure enough, I was right. And I was like, oh my God. So I called Dale and I said, Dale, do not get back in the car. We're going to make new pinch clamps for you. Okay. And he said, well, I'm not racing until this weekend. So we whip out another set of pinch clamps. I run over there, put them in the car. Dale was running around trying to get ready to go. And right before I left, the last thing I told him, I said, Dale, I don't care what you ran into. Our stuff is good. Don't care what happens. It's good. Okay, do whatever you want to do. And then he crashes it two times that night. My phone was blowing up. Everybody's texting, Dale's crashed. And I was like, oh, God, is he okay? And then, he crashed again the same night. And so I called Dale the next day. I was like, Dale, I didn't mean that literal. I mean, I told you were good now, but you didn't have to go try it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just
Thank God we got that done.
You just came
we
from
came back in
PRI.
second.
Yeah, you just came from PRI. How was your system received there?
It was, man, I would say great. There's a lot of questions, and we had a production, one part of it, there's actually like 4 pieces to it, 4 duplicates, if you want to call it, and we had one example we carried with us and let everybody touch and feel it. It wasn't coated, it wasn't laser engraved. The polymers weren't out of the multi-cavity mold. They were just out of a single cavity mold, so everything will be refined a little bit more. But I thought it was very well received myself. I was encouraged when I left.
I'll tell you this: I had to take my XC gear shirt off and go in disguise just so I could go around to the booth without somebody stopping me every 5 minutes. So yeah, there was a lot of talk about it while we were there.
Yeah.
Well, this
And
is the kind of
some people recognize me, from the dirt bike world. There's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of guys that used to ride dirt bikes and now race sprint cars and vice versa, or do both.
Well, you know what they say,
So there's
Lance.
crossover.
You know what they say. With age comes a cage.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't done that yet. I'm still out and still riding dirt bikes. Yeah.
This
That's
is
crazy. The stuff y'all do is crazy.
I'm not going to argue with you. But this is the kind of innovation we like to see when we're looking to help keep drivers, walking and talking and, still racing. I think we need to encourage more of this and support more of this. Get away from some of the goofy stuff that people are doing just because, well, that's how we've done it for 25 years. Let's look at, have an open mind and do some stuff different.
Yeah, I agree with you. That goes with everything, not just sprint cars.
Yeah.
But it goes with everything. I agree.
So you got any other prototypes or ideas for dirt track racers that you want to try out?
Not yet. I'm full bore trying to get this one going. I'm trying to get it in the box. And, I learned that a long time ago. I was super naive when I did the foot pegs, and I had no idea. I still don't. I still learn every single day. But I didn't, and I wouldn't say that I wouldn't have done it, but I definitely would have given a lot more serious thought if I knew all the things that are involved to, inventing something and making something is one thing. Getting it in somebody's hands in another part of the world is a whole nother animal, and I was super naive about that. I didn't know. There's not really a book, and I didn't have a mentor, to tell me. We just kind of figured everything out the hard way, I didn't know.
So Chili Bowl's coming up in a month. You gonna bring it over to Tulsa and show it off?
If Dale Howard's going, I'll go.
I'm skipping the Chili Bowl this year, Lance. I've got a job, I've got to move the dirt in the Landers Center. So I had to take a pick, and I'm gonna stay home and make a little money instead of go to the Chili Bowl this year.
I'll be with you at the Landers Center.
There you go.
I'll be going to Chili Bowl and spending my money.
Will you? Yeah.
Yeah, I help out
Dale's
a team.
got a cool.
I help out a team.
Dale's
I've been
got a
for
cool
quite a
job
few years.
coming up.
Yeah, I do have a cool one coming up. That's gonna be fun.
Tell us about
Lance
it.
helped me. Yeah, Lance helped me get that job.
Tell
us about it.
Yeah, I did it for
Good.
15 years. Dale's going to start doing the dirt work inside the Landers Center arena for all the dirt shows. So I think, what are you going to start off with, the rodeo? Is that what's coming up next? The rodeo?
Yep, the rodeo will be on
Yeah.
January the 18th, so we got to get started getting
Yeah.
the dirt moved in there. It's coming up
Yeah,
pretty
then
quick.
he's got monster truck after that. So if you're ever bored, if you want to know what Dale did, that video I posted had 30 plus million views. I know that sounds crazy, but it went over 30 million views. And we time lapsed the dirt in, dirt out for a rodeo at the Landers Center. So if you're ever bored, just Google Trifirma,
I love that stuff.
TRIFRMA, Landers Center. And it's a time lapse of, going in, going out, and it goes down in a minute. But it went 30 million views. It was nuts. But that's what Dale's going to do. I sold that business a couple years ago, and Dale still is in that business, It's a
I'm
cool
already
deal.
Googling.
Work inside a building.
So
Yeah, look, it's pretty cool.
I'll ask you this one, Dale. What do you think? Where do you think sprint cars need to go to become safer? I mean, we're talking about a chassis design that essentially is 100 years old.
So the driver sits straight up in a sprint car. A lot of other cars you lay back. I don't know if there's a way to make a sprint car lay back, but me and Mark Smith have talked a lot about if we could just lay somebody back just a few degrees, it would make a big difference. I do drive a late model some, and those seats lay back a little further. Mm-hmm. And you never see, you don't see near as many back injuries in a late model. Although after driving a late model, those cars are rough. So I want one of these systems in my late model too. And if that frame comes down and hits the ground, it's going to hurt. But you're laid back a little bit further. So if we could get the sprint cars to lay back a little further, another thing, and I think this will eventually happen, I think the seat belts will eventually get mounted to the seat instead of to the chassis. If there's some people that say, well, there's nothing holding the seat in the car at that point. And I said, well, you could always tether the seat in the car if you thought that was an issue. But still, I think the seat belt should be mounted to the seat. And I believe eventually that will happen. It's just, it takes a lot of people to get on board to change anything. Because like you said earlier, everybody just wants to keep doing it the same way we've always done it. But there again, we keep hurting people, and we've got to make a move. And I'm glad to be part of this with Lance because, like I said, my little brother's paralyzed. I've had a lot of friends get hurt. And I'm glad to see us moving in the right direction. You can't do it overnight because you can't get everybody on board. But I think slowly, I think we're headed in the right direction.
I was hoping you was going to say that, Dale, not hold that back.
No, I'm not going to hold that back because I really think eventually that's where we need to go.
Well, and we need to start listening to some of these people that are making sense. Randy LaJoy talks a lot about, we need to change the way seats are built, the way they're mounted. Carbon Kenny says the same thing about, the carbon seats in a dirt car. I think there's a long way to go with seats. I think we need to get away from the Ultra Shield, just a flat piece of aluminum that, isn't really going to do anything for you in a crash, and get to something that's going to protect you a little bit more contoured to the body. But to do that, you need a bigger cockpit, and that's where you're going to get the fight. Is people aren't going to want a bigger cockpit.
Now, Dave Sharpley does make a really nice insert, and that's what I run in my car. So you take that and combine it with this seat system of Lance's, and now you have two items there that are going to try to protect you as much as possible in a crash. But like I said, Dave Sharpley, you probably know who I'm talking about.
That's the Sharp Advantage setup.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
A ton of guys run his inserts.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
So Dale, we're talking to you, but we haven't really got your story. Tell us a little bit about how you got into racing, how long you've been racing, where you race at. Give us a little insight of what you got going on.
Oh my goodness.
Non-wing.
So mainly wing. I started in a wing sprint car in '93. It's funny because Lance's father-in-law was really close friends with my dad, and my dad and him, they ran up and down the road racing all over the country. And then my dad retired from that in 1980. And then I came along, started back racing in '93. And then Lance's father-in-law came right along with me. So, and then, of course, my dad did too, and they started helping me. Then I had Deuce Terrell. I know y'all probably remember him. He was Doug Wolfgang's crew chief. He came along and started helping me in '94 for a couple of years. And then we just kind of progressed from there. I don't really drive for other people very much. Occasionally I will, but I kind of like doing my own thing. I never really wanted to run the road and do that full time because I had a business. I had a dirt business to run. My family was in the transmission business too. And I just, I kind of wanted to stay close to home, and that's still what I do. I like racing for myself and go on a race where I want to. Be my own boss.
What tracks do you normally race at?
So the track I would call home would be Riverside Speedway at West Memphis, Arkansas. It's in West Memphis, but it's just across the bridge from Memphis, Tennessee. Because that's pretty much where we are. Like Lance said, he's 1 mile. XC Gear is 1 mile south of the airport, the Memphis airport. And I'm probably 45 minutes southeast of the Memphis airport. So,
yeah, you guys are a couple of hours south of me. I'm in Kentucky.
Okay.
I'm going to throw you a curveball because this is kind of a throwback to a previous podcast we had, Dale. Who's the greatest to ever strap into a sprint car? And you can't say Steve Kinser.
Sammy Swindell.
Oh man, you should have said Dale Howard.
Well, okay, so I'm a little biased. I can't say that. But Sammy's been driving for me. Well, Sammy's been driving for me for the past year and a half. So he's from Memphis, Tennessee. So when I was young, I used to buy all my parts. So I'd go over Bobby Davis Jr. and Sammy. I'd go back and forth, and I'd buy all their used parts from them. And then with Sammy driving for me for the past year and a half, of course, I've got to say Sammy.
Yeah, we pit next to him at the Chili Bowl, and it's a lot of fun. He is not the person that most people think he is.
No, you're right. In fact, I've been with him the past 2 years at the Chili Bowl. I carried those cars out there for him.
So
You probably bumped into him then.
Yeah, the school bus yellow the school bus yellow 8-ball midget.
Mm-hmm.
That's ours.
Okay. Well, like I said, I took my truck and trailer and carried him out there. So, but I'm not going to be able to this year because I've got this job that I really want to do, and it's going to pay a little better.
Not as much fun though. Not as much fun, and no oil fire there.
Not as much fun, but it'll pay a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that about wraps it up. Anybody got anything else?
Thanks for coming on,
pretty
guys.
good. I'm just happy that we're making progress some way, some shape, form to help guys.
Yeah, we all support that, I think. Dale, Lance, this is your chance to throw out your social medias and websites. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you.
Go ahead, Lance.
You go first, Dale.
I'm not selling anything.
That's how you know they're friends.
Yeah. We're just on XC Gear. XC Gear on Facebook, XC Gear 17 on Instagram, and XC Gear on TikTok. And so that's usually on the website, xcgear.com.
And I don't want to brag or anything, but we had Hunter Schoenberg on here, and he picked up a full-time ride right afterwards. So, just saying.
Hunter's a good guy. I remember when he first started racing.
Yeah. So, Dale, we asked this of every racer. You got any sponsors or family members or friends you need to thank to help support your racing?
Oh, yeah. I have a long list of them, but I'll try to make it short. So
the floor is yours, sir.
Well, Ultra Shield and then Dave Sharpley. Those are the ones that we're in contact with a lot right now because of the safety products that we're working on. And those deserve the most credit right now of trying to make sprint cars safer. And obviously that's what me and Lance are trying to do. In fact, I don't even have anything monetary to gain out of this other than just trying to make it safer. That's why I've been tagging along with Lance and, Darren Pittman at Ultra Shield and then Dave Sharpley. They don't really have anything monetary to gain either, but they are generally in it to make this safer. So those are the two biggest ones I've got to give a big shout out to, considering what we're discussing tonight,
And Mark Smith.
And Mark Smith has spent a lot of time. In fact, he's had this system in his car too the last part of the year. And me and him are always talking back and forth about what we can do to make this better. Mark talks to my little brother that's paralyzed. He talks to him every day. And so, he's as much of a brother to my brother as I am. And so he has a lot of interest in making this safer also.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for your time. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. And again, we appreciate you coming on.
Thank y'all so much. I do appreciate it. I do. Hope to talk to y'all again.
Hey, you guys are more than welcome anytime you want to come on. You got it. When it's ready to launch, hitting the floor running, you want to put another blurb out, we'll have you boys on again. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for hanging out.